in the middle of the program, and two guys with suits on, plain clothesmen, I guess FBI, walked in there and pulled Smokey off the piano and arrested him while we was on the program. And we ain't gonna tell him what Smokey's done. We'll come to find out what he'd done. He'd played in Carpus with a band before that, and this guy's name was Curly Austin, a real good drummer. And supposedly Smokey stole the guy's pickup and the drums and took it across the state line. So they hauled Smokey right off our radio program. I said, well, I'll never see Smokey again. But he showed up. Anyway, well, what a band that was, man. So we didn't last all that long.
While you're on Smokey, what was the story that was told recently about what he was eating, the crackers and the...
Yeah, he, not too long before he died 3 or 4 times, we heard, and every time he didn't, he'd show up. And he was up out of Waco, Fort Worth, somewhere up in that area, and Bill Manson went over there to check on him. They were real good friends, and Smokey was living in the garage with a dirt floor, and he was eating soda crackers and Vic Save. That was his... that was his meal. Yeah, imagine that, soda cracker with Vic Save.
Now on Cotton, and I think it's Cotton, he showed you one time a guy who had a unique way of playing Red Wing.
Yeah.
Was that Cotton that showed you that?
Yeah, it was him.
It was
yeah.
Messing around.
Yeah.
But play how he...
I don't know. Yeah, he said he's living up in Hubbard, Texas, you know, and trying to learn to play the fiddle, you know. Red Wing, where the bridge goes. So Cotton says, I could get to the bridge, and I couldn't get back to the start, I'd play. I never could get back to where it started, you know. Anyway, that was a bunch of bull. But he said Red Wing was kind of a hang-up. He's trying to learn it. And he broke his fiddle bow, by the way, getting back to that. He only had one bow, lived up there in the country. And he's telling me this, we're playing with Moon, you know, and I'm trying to play, and he's in my ear. And he said, I went outside, I didn't have a bow, so I made me one out of a willow limb. And he said it was so long, he said I could play 3 tunes in one swipe. All kind of stuff. But anyway, the Smoky Woods thing, he was #1. And when they arrested him off the radio program, I said, well, that'd be the end of his career, you know. Well, I was playing with Benny Leaders at Cook's Hoedown, and lo and behold, this was probably 3 years later, and who walks in the door with Smokey? He had a nice suit on, he had a white shirt and tie, haircut, shaved, sitting over at a table. I'll be doggone, there's Smoky Woods of all people. So we took intermission. Well, I went over there and sat down by him. And I'd never seen him look so nice, and he was talking normal. Nice looking suit, tie, crossed his legs, didn't have on any socks. And socks was in me. And I said, Smokey, what are you doing over here? And he said, I'm in the used car business. He said, me and Hezzy Bryant. Well, I knew Hezzy. Him and Hezzy's good friends. And I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, we got a car lot out on Washington Avenue. Me and Hezzy's in the used car business. I said, what kind of cars you got out there, Smokey? He said, old and older. Cars. Anyway, he'd disappear for a while, then we'd hear he died, and then he'd show up again, and him and Bill Mouse was good friends, and he moved up around Bill there somewhere. And in fact, Bill told me the story about he found him, and he didn't show up, and he went over to check on him. He found him dead. He died, and maybe in that garage or something. I don't know. But anyway, he passed away.
Vic's poisoning.
Vic's got him, I guess.
Got evicted.
And anyway, Bill said that somebody got his body over to his funeral home. This was a town or something, and he said I didn't know how to contact any of his family. I just heard he had a sister somewhere in Louisiana. I didn't know how to contact anybody. And said his body was over to the funeral home, so he said I went down to the Union, I guess Waco, and talked to the Secretary of the Union, where unions carry insurance on the musicians, you know, if you belong to the union. And went down there, and he knew Smokey, and he said, man, he said, Smokey's not paid no dues here in years. But he said, I'm gonna show him paid up, and that way he'll have a little couple of $100 insurance. So Bill said, I went down to the funeral home and told him, said, I'm a friend of Mr. Wood, and said, he didn't have no insurance. In fact, all the money he's got is that Union provided. Here's a couple of $100, and said that funeral director turned around and hollered, put him in another box. He done had him. I said, man, Smokey was funny to the end,
Oh,
wasn't he? He said,
yeah.
yes, he was. But there's stories on Smokey Woods all over the place, and he ended up.
He was a good musician, though, right?
Yeah, played good piano, and he got over after that ordeal or the lighthouse thing. And he got out of jail or whatever. He ended up playing with Billy Claiborne over in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And of course, Billy was you depend on what all he said. And boy, Benny picked up some stories, and he come on in with a little because I didn't witness those, but Billy told it, and I know it was like he said. He was going to have a meeting with Jesse James and the Daltons and all that down there at the river, and he was putting atomic bugs on Spade Cooley, and I don't know what all, and Troy's hands had all broke out from. Let's tell this on these guys, but I mean it's the truth.
Troy Passmore.
Troy Passmore, they had a good band. Billy hired Smokey to play piano, and he said Troy had ate so much Benzedrine that his hands had broke out. He had like sores, like blisters on his hands. He wasn't hardly going to play.
Mm-hmm.
So said we all lived over in one room. So said Smokey said I'll take care of that. Said I'll be back in a minute. So said Smokey come back with something in a bottle and a dishpan, and said he took this dishpan, he put it in there, and said he took the lid off the bottle, and said he emptied it in there, and then put a little water in it. And he told Troy, he said, now put your hands in there and let them soak for 30 minutes, and then drink it. Troy, okay. No, Troy, don't. Yeah, soak your hands and then drink it.
Yeah.
And anyway, he pulled a bunch of deals over there. But Smokey was the top.
He was the character of all.
He put all the rest of them to shame.
All the characters. Now I know you're playing with Moon over there, and of course that led, I guess, to playing with Cliff. Heard you say many times that your inspirations on fiddle was Cliff and Jr.
Yeah.
So how did you end up playing with Cliff first time?
Cliff had left the Forest Club and left Moon there, and that's when I went to work with Moon. Cliff opened his own club out on Port Arthur called the Cliff Brunner Club. Mm-hmm. And of course, Cliff falls into this thing of characters as well, but nothing up in the Smokey deal. I mean, but Cliff had his club out on Port Arthur Road called the Cliff Brunner Club, and I was Moon at the time, and then all this other took place with Cotton and all that stuff, and. Cliff sold his club over there, got out of the club business, and went and came to put another band together, and they went to Corpus. They went to Corpus Christian, got a radio show down there. And he had Lee Bell and John Wallace and Mansell and Johnny Edwards, drummer, Cliff, Mutt Collins. They played Corpus for a while, and then when they pulled out of there, I got a call one morning. I was playing with Jerry Irby. And John Wallace called me, and he said, we're leaving Corpus, and said we're going to come to Houston, and Cliff wanted me to call you and see if you'd go to work with us playing fiddle in mandolin. He said, Cliff wants 2 fiddles for a while, and maybe you and him double on mandolin. He said, you know, Johnny just went to work with Wills, and Johnny and Tiny was doubling on fiddles in mandolin. And he said, Cliff wants you to go work on fiddle, and said maybe he'll get you and him a couple of mandolins, y'all do a little bit on that, you know. Well, I was delighted, so I quit whatever I was doing. I was tickled to death. I was 19 years old. So Cliff said, meet me down at Boston A's Music Store down there in downtown Houston, and I'll get us a mandolin. So I go down there to meet him, and he bought me and him both a mandolin. And we went to play that night, I think in Bay City. And his mandolin playing lasted, I think, 1 course. And the pick and the bow was different. So I ended up with both mandolins. Anyway, playing fiddle with him, of course, I was impressed, and I'd heard him so much that I didn't get in his way, and I pretty well knew how he was going to phrase, and I could play harmony with him, and I knew how he liked to solo and stuff, so I was never on top of him. I'd back off when he knew to. Anyway, the second job with him, Harris Dodd was a steel player. Harris was, he was different too, you know. So we get on the bandstand, Cliff, he's up shaking hands with somebody. We get up there to tune up. Had John Wallace on bass, Johnny Edwards on drums, Lee Bell on guitar, and Harris Dodd on steel, and me and Cliff. So we're on the bandstand. Of course, you didn't have strobe tuners then. And Harris said, I'm going to tell you something. Harris is an old pro, you know, I'm going to listen. He said, when we get on the bandstand to play, he said, always tune to me. Always tune to me, he said, because Cliff's got a flat ear. And I said, okay. So I tuned my ear to Harris. Here comes Cliff, about 5 minutes before time to start. Yes, he said, long, he's gliding me. I said, he said, oh, listen, don't ever tune to Harris, always tune to me, because he has a sharp ear. Okay. I'll just get in the middle, I guess, and slide or something. But that was the deal, and it was a good group, and Cliff was kind of phasing out then, but still doing a lot of jobs, and they bet on everything, everything. When you got to playing a job, it was not then you go home. That didn't even enter into it. Shuffleboards was big in these places, and we would play shuffleboard maybe till daylight, and run out of that, and maybe we'd go outside and pitch quarters at a line in the sidewalk, or maybe a foot race, which liked to kill us. And betting was big time with Cliff. Basically had a beer too. He wasn't a heavy drinker, never was, but he drank a little bit, and he just bet on anything.
Well, tell about the foot race. That's a good
Okay, so we played in Palacios. Palacios had a place then real popular called the Palacios Pavilion. It was out there on the water, and I guess it's about 100-yard walk across a concrete sidewalk that went out there across the water to the Palacios Pavilion. So we booked there. We get through playing, and the people's left and all that. We're out there loading up, and Cliff gets out, or somebody does, and starts throwing quarters at the line in the sidewalk. So all of us get out there. Whoever's quarters closest to the line picks up the other's quarters. And we done that, I don't know how long. Man, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning after throwing at the line. Everybody else in the club's loaded up. Everybody's gone home. There's street lights. We all get in the car. Well, this is it. And we get in the car. And Harris and Cliff was all the time on each other's case about something. They thought a lot of each other. They'd all the time bet against each other. Get in the car, and Harris said, John Wallace can outrun anybody in the band on foot. And John Wallace looked like Clark Kent. John was about 6'2", probably weighed about 225, and just real well-built guy. And Cliff says, hey, he can't outrun little Clyde. Well, I got so-and-so that says he can. Well, I got so-and-so that says he can't. Well, what am I to do? So Cliff said, y'all run down there at the end of this bridge thing and back, which I guess would amount to about maybe a block and a half. It's a pretty long run. Okay, Cliff's betting on me. Man, I got to run. So I pulled my shoes off, had my socks, and I weighed about 125, I guess. Me and John take off, and he's a big guy. And we ran down there, and I just cooled it on the way down, and we come back, I turned it on, and I was in the back seat trying to get my breath, and John was still running back. I outrun him so bad, and Harris had to pay Cliff. Cliff just grinned, and I told you. Harris said, well, little Clyde can't outrun Lee Bell. Cliff said, I said, yes he can. Man, my foot's almost bleeding by then on the socks. Lee Bell said, no, he said, I'm not gonna run. He said, man, I don't drink, I never smoked, and I run track when I was in high school. And he said, you know, he didn't want to run against me. I just got through running the race. Cliff said, oh, come on, man, here's my money. So me and Lee gets out to run. I just got through running 2 blocks. We take off. Lee's in pretty good shape, and you know, he wasn't heavy or nothing. And we ran down there and kind of cooled it, running neck and neck. And we turned around and start back. We both turned it on, and Lee stepped on his pants leg somewhere and was just turning flips. He fell down, And I zipped on back, and here we get back, and Harris has to pay Cliff again. By then, my foot's bleeding. What they do, they all get in the car and go to sleep, and I have to drive home. Got almost home, and they want to eat something. Next day, we haven't got home yet. We go in this place, and they've got a shuffleboard. And then we played that till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was all the time, it was betting on something, you know, something. Anyway, shortly after that, Cliff phased out and went in the insurance business. And